Okay, good morning, everybody. I see that we have already more than 60 people online, so that's pretty good, and also some people in the room here in Strasbourg. So I will, I will start. Voila, so happy to see you here in the room, but also see so many people online. During this session, we will discuss the widespread comebacks of wolves in Europe, which has been feeding very polarized debates over the last years and led to recent proposals of changing the wolves' protection status, opening the possibility of reducing their populations. The general increase of deer, wild boar, and other prey species across Europe has enabled wolves and other carnivores to expand their range from the few places in which they were not driven to extinction. While this is a reason to celebrate, concerns over the return of wolves needs to be addressed, particularly when it comes to issues such as livestock depredation. The challenge is and will be to relearn to live with wolves. In December 2022, the European Commission proposed a downgrade of the wolves' protection status under the Bern Convention. While this debate seems now mainly driven by emotions, we must remain factual and consider scientific evidence to make informed choices. So the aim of today's session is to get more clarity on where we stand. The first presentation will focus on wolf conservation in Poland. Dr. Sabina Nowak from the Faculty of Biology of the University of Warsaw will speak about research on wolf protection in the last 25 years. As the research reveals the benefits of the protection of wolves and successful methods for coexistence. Her colleague, Dr. Robert Myslajek, will also join to answer questions from the audience. Film director, and I'm very pleased that he is with us today, Jean-Michel Bertrand, will then present excerpts of his recently released documentary Vivre avec les loups, Living with Wolves, which is currently shown in cinemas. We will hear his interviews with farmers in France, Switzerland, and Italy, who show that coexistence with wolves is possible. Finally, Humberto Delgado Rosa, Director for Biodiversity at DG Environment, European Commission, will join us online to expose the justification of the recent proposal to change the wolves' protection status under the Bern Convention and its implications. With the proposal, the European Commission seems to have operated a U-turn after years of supporting coexistence efforts with the wolves and rejecting a change of their protection status. Just a short update before coming on ongoing initiatives of the intergroup.
Yeah, here Niels is not here, so you
Niels
can give the information. So.
Okay. Yeah. So before we start, I will just inform you shortly on where we are, the promised revision of the EU animal welfare legislation and on the calls of the animal welfare-related ECIs. This initiative, which was co-signed by many members of this intergroup, the lapse date of the oral question is approaching quickly, and therefore it will be necessary to ensure that the plenary debate can still be held on this question before 16 March 2024. Voila, so yes, I'm just reading if there is something special we need to say still on this. Andreas, please go ahead if you want to add precise there.
Yeah, it would be good that you reach out to your group leaders and ask that a plenary debate can be held on this oral question. This is getting quite urgent now because only 2 plenary sessions are still left, and so it is a really urgent issue. Thank you.
Okay, and just some practical information, but you know them already. It's live stream, and the meeting will also be recorded, so you can re-watch it if you want. The video recording will be updated also at the Intergroup website, so all the presentation as always, and interpretation will be provided in English, French, German, Italian, Polish. And now we come really to the first point, which is wolf conservation in Poland. 25 years of solving problems and revealing benefits. I now hand over to our first guest speaker, Dr. Sabina Nowak from the University of Warsaw. Dear Dr. Nowak, the floor is yours. Good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning to everybody. Nice to meet you, and thank you very much for inviting us to give the presentation of our experiences after 25 years of wolf conservation in Poland. We both, me and Robert Mysłajek, we are working at the University of Warsaw, and we conduct studies on wolves, but we also are leaders of a non-governmental organization which is involved in wolf conservation in Poland. Next, please. So a little bit about the history. The wolf was fully protected in most of our country in 1995. Then there was implemented the damage compensation system by our state, and then in 1998 the full protection in the whole of the country was introduced. So it was something like 6 years before we joined to European Union and implemented the Habitat Directive. Next, please. In Poland, the culling of wolves is possible, but only on the basis of the special permission issued by the General Director for Environmental Protection. And the conditions for culling are generally the same as derogation under the Habitat Directive. So they are only for single cases or for single wolves or several wolves in response to the application of the local community or farmers or vets, which have some reason to apply for such culling, like public safety, severe depredation on livestock in particular farms, shortening suffering of the animal which have some diseases or had a vehicle collision, and in case of hybridizations of wolves with dogs. So in 2022, such applications in our General Directorate was for 100 wolves permissions, which were issued for 44 wolves, and during that time 2 wolves were killed. 4 wolves were killed, yeah. Next. So this is about the law. The population in Poland in the time when wolves were started to be protected was not really small. It was something like officially 1,000 individuals. However, after the first inventory, which was done in 2000, it was something like 500 years. So we didn't protect the wolves because they were very rare in Poland, but because they, as was stated in the introduction to the Protection Act, they play an important role in ecosystems, mostly by the impact of ungulates community and on the forest. So the population was protected during the time it is protected, developed, and in the last report for European Commission was estimated at a little bit less than 2,000 wolves. Please, next. Poland as a country placed in the Central or Eastern Europe, and protecting wolves became a source of wolves which settled in other Western European countries. So this is one of the biggest source of the natural wolf recovery in continental Europe. Next, please. So the population in Europe increased during that time, and the whole wolf population is divided into 9 wolf populations, such management units. So Poland has 3 such populations: Carpathian, Baltic, and Central European wolf population. Next, please. When we recognize some very important threats to all these populations, the building border fences is very important issue, because in case of Baltic population, this border fences dividing the population on several sections. Next, please. So last 2-3 years, quite a long such border fences were built on borders in Baltic states, between Baltic states, Belarus and Russia, and between Poland and Russia, Kaliningrad Oblast, and Belarus, and altogether there are 103,000 of such border fences, which are very high. There are about 4 to 5 meters high wall and razor blade wire. So it's quite, next please, quite a big problem for animals, for terrestrial animals, which cannot just go through such a barrier. And we observe on Polish border also lots of problems which face these animals, which want to use both sides of the forest, which are the very important habitat for both ungulate species, but also for large carnivores and also wolves. Next, please. So, because the biggest problem, which is connected with large carnivores, but mostly wolves, conservation are damage caused by predators to livestock. So I would like to present you some numbers. In Poland, this compensation system do not cover only wolves, but also 4 other species: lynx, brown bear, here you have wolf, and European bison and beaver. So as you can see, this is the compensation paid by beavers, which is the highest. This compensation are paid by state, of course, to farmers, and there are the highest compensations. Here, the red one are compensation paid by state to farmers for the predation of wolves. And this compensation for beavers are almost 20 times higher than for wolves. So the biggest problem are just this amount which are paid for beavers, not for wolves today in Poland. Next, please. So as you can see, there are amount for wolves are paid 439,000 of euro. But for beavers, over 8 million euro. Next, please. Here you have the graph showing the structure of the livestock killed by wolves in Poland. Mostly sheep are killed, which make 63%, much less for cattle and farm deer, which this farms with deer like fallow deer are quite numerous in Poland, and they are not very well protected, so the damage are quite big. And of course the cost of such a farm deer is very high, much higher than for sheep, and very similar like for adult cattle. Next, please. So, but when we compare this damage caused by wolves, this depredation of wolves, so with the sheep population, the whole population in Poland, this damage is not so high, because it's only 1.5% of the whole stock, and other mortality factors accounted for over 35% of individuals. We have very large cattle population in Poland, almost 6 million and a half of cattle, and wolves kill 250 cattle per year. So it means that the depredation of wolves makes something like very small percentage of the whole stock, and much bigger is the death of cattle from different other reasons, like diseases, like lack of care, like other factors. So this mortality is something like 3% of the whole stock, and almost 6% of calves die from various causes. In case of goats, this is also very small percentage of the whole stock, the wolf depredation, and for horses the same. There are not so many horses killed by wolves in Poland, something like 10 to 15 per year in the whole country. Next, please. So there are many activities to help farmers to cope with the problem of depredation on livestock. There are many guidebooks, special websites and trainings for farmers. The whole compensation system also covers some activities. Next, please. There are prevention measures like electric fences, flood resets, livestock guarding dogs, which are provided to farmers both by NGOs but also by governmental agencies, which are responsible for compensation of damage. So they propose to farmers such prevention measures, and they provide these measures, and they supervise the usage and so on. And they finance the prevention measures from different sources, like national funds for environmental protection. Next, please. There are also, not all, of course, livestock are killed by wolves, but also by dogs. And it's quite hard to distinguish between these two species, between these two animals, when you can see the dead livestock. But at least 284 livestock per year is killed by dogs. Sheep, cattle, poultry, farm deer. Every year because there are lots of now cameras installed in such the deer farms, so it's possible to recognize that also dogs kill a lot of such farm deer. Next, please. Of course, we have a big source of natural food for wolves in Poland. There are abundant population of wild ungulate in forest and also on arable lands because of very large fields of corn. The corn is now the most common plant which are bred on our arable fields. So we have huge population of red deer also living on fields, and roe deer, and wild boars. There are also fallow deer in forest, which is the alien species just released for the hunting purposes. And the moose population is also growing. So all these ungulates are growing, and we have a very big population of beavers, which are partly protected in Poland, and there was very successful project of reintroduction of this species in 60s, and the population increased a lot. Next, please. So there were many studies on wolf diet in Poland. We analyzed results. Some of them were conducted by us, of course. We analyzed 21 study areas where many wolf feces were analyzed to find what is the diet of wolves, and of course the wild ungulates prevails. And that in all these different areas, the percentage of consumed biomass in case of ungulates differ. However, is prevailing in the wolf diet. Next, please. Of course, the most common is roe deer and wild boars, which consists of 60 to 70 of consumed biomass. Wild boars up to 42 of food biomass. It really depends on the area and how abundant and what is the structure of wild ungulates in that study place. So it depends. Next, please. But also beavers make a quite big share in the wolf diet, up to 35 food biomass. It really depends on the region, on the area, how big population of beavers exist there. However, next please. However, the beaver population, as I mentioned, is quite high in Poland. So in this region, when the population is the highest, also the wolf predation on beavers is the biggest. And because the damage, which the compensation which are paid for damage caused by beaver, we can recognize the beaver consumption by wolves as kind of ecosystem service, because they lower the density of beavers in regions where they hunt of beavers. So the wolves have the impact on the density of beavers in certain areas. Next, please. Also, the predation on ungulates we also can recognize as ecosystem service, because the cost of forest protection against deer browsing is really huge in Poland. This cost covers fencing, treating with special chemicals the young trees and so on, and this cost are over 30 million zloty in Poland. So lowering the population by wolves, the ungulate population, is quite important for forest management and saving the forest, young forest against the browsing. Next, please. We colored wolves for radio telemetry with GPS GSM collars, and during last almost 10 years we colored 24 wolves, including 17 resident wolves. So we gain a lot of information about usage by wolves, the different habitats, and also we revealed some interesting information about how wolves can provide also some benefits to our country. Next, please. We found that wolves many times they hunt on fields, on arable lands, on ungulates which live there and which just feed on fields. And it's next, please. Here you can see such a wolf. So, because the compensation for farmers for damage caused by such a crop riding wild ungulates, like mostly wild boars, but also by roe deer, and recently also red deer, which became quite a frequent visitor of such fields, are very high, 32 million euro in 2021. This compensation reached. And so every time the hunting of wolves, preying of wolves on these ungulates on fields provides some benefits, because it's lower. They just remove these ungulates which hunt there. Next, please. We also discovered, using telemetry wolves with collars, that wolves consume just hunt on such sick individuals, sick wild boar, or consume the carcass of wild boars which died because of African swine fever. And these wolves just the virus of the swine fever going through the digesting system of wolves is disappear, is distracted. So we can say that wolves are kind of machines which just utilize this virus, and the cost of ISF eradication, which makes last year over 38 million zlotys, euro in Poland, including 27 million euro for hunters for shooting wild boars, are so huge that we can consider wolves also as a supporter of this eradication, because they just remove such carcass, and they also very efficiently hunt on wild boars in the whole Poland. So they decrease the density of wild boars, helping to fight with this disease. Next, please. Here you have such a description of the system of destroying the virus in the digestive system in the wolf digestive system. Next, please. Of course, wolf also, because they quite frequently feed on carcass of died animals. They remove carrions of wild animals, for example, roadkills from the sides of the road or just from the forest, so which can be the source of pathogens. So also this kind of wolf activities, just scavenging, we can consider as the ecosystem service. Next, please. We also discovered that wolves can be sentinels of such cases when the law is broken by storage by farmers, the carcass of livestock in different places, when the law is broken and the carcass is just thrown out to the edge of the forest or just on the field. Next, please. And our collared wolves provided us with such information. They let us.
Excuse me, just it's very, very interesting, but we are a little bit running out of time. There was 15 minutes foreseen,
yes,
but
yes.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so I will finish next minute. Yeah, next, please. And next, please. So wolves also hunt on free-ranging dogs. We have lots of free-ranging dogs in Poland, and they cause lots of problems. So the population is very high. Next, please. Next, please. Thank you very much for your attention.
That was quick now. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much. Very, very interesting. So we're going to the next presentation, and I'm very pleased to give now the word to Jean-Michel Bertrand to present excerpts of his new documentary, Living with the Wolf. Donc, je vais vous donner la parole pour...
So I pass the floor over to you so that you can present your film, and then we'll have an abstract. Well, first of all, good morning, and thank you very much for having invited me. I'm delighted to be here. So I'll be brief, and then we'll be able to have a discussion after the film, the clip from the film. The film is the third of a series. The first film was basically a type of search film. I wanted to see exactly where the wolves were in my part of the world. And then the reaction to that led me to produce a second film, which was Walking with Wolves. I started to talk about where they were, their dispersal. There are never too many wolves in the same place. They are very territorial, and they don't like too many in the one place. So I started to think about that territoriality, and I was trying to work out who was invading the territory. Were we invading their territory or vice versa? And that led to quite a lot of aggression. I was under threat. People threatened to kill me. So the wolf is really a very emotional figure. So I have this third film, which is in the cinema now since the end of January, and rather to respond to hate by hate, I decided to reach out to go and see shepherds, breeders, hunters, people who just represent themselves and nobody else, and they feel that the only real answer is to just live with the wolves. And this film is about the conversations I had with those people. And after the clip, I'm here to reply to any question which you might have.
Thank you. Well, just to tell you that in this film, of course, there's a lot of wolves, but here we wanted to show you these excerpts of these breeders, of these farmers who are looking for a solution, the intelligent, collective solution, and far from the sterile warfare that we tend to have to put up with. So if you have any questions, we can go straight to have a drink. Thank you ever so much for your work and for that excellent presentation, because when it comes to the farmers you met up with, in France in particular, there's these collars, the devices that tend to chase wolves away. So that is now in the works, this collar, the pheromone collar, and there's some studies afoot. And in the Jura I was recently, and for the time being, it's at the experimental stage. But we have to try everything. In any event, if we don't give it a shot, we'll never know. And sometimes it's been wolves that seem to make their way around. The pheromones were on poles to stop the wolf from coming over. But sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. So any and every attempt is welcome. And that's how little by little we'll be making headway. I had another question, by your leave. Isn't this also due to the fact that hunters kill too many animals, and then the wolves attacking farm animals? Doesn't this impact hunters? Well, I hate to say it, I'm not a hunter, needless to say, but it is on account of the hunters that the wolf is back on the upswing, because in the mid-20th century, the hunters had killed practically everything. There was nothing left. When I was a kid in the Alps, I didn't see any of these wild animals, a wild boar, what have you, the deer, and the wild ungulates now have returned massively, and alongside that, wolves, which had been protected in Italy, in the Abruzzi, in the Apennines, and the wolves then subsequently came back to us. So when you have wolves, because they are regulated in terms of their numbers, the herd is based, the size of the herd is based on the food that's available. So when you go to Siberia or somewhere else where there's big animals, deer, moose that are killed by wolves, but when you have a number of generations of wolves, you have to realize when it comes to the way these predators work, the way they balance things out, there's never too many. So the wolves are never going to have what they prey on disappear, because otherwise they die out. So that's what we've seen. And also, when it comes to the regulation of predators, that is something that's really worthwhile. And it's not even worth talking about. When I hear people now, hunters say, well, the wolves are going to kill everything, and we won't have anything to hunt, and your kids are going to have anything to eat, etc. That's back to the Middle Ages. That's an outright lie. And the wolves protect biodiversity. I think in the 90s, this focus on biodiversity. Well, yes, things took off because there was a natural regulation in the YPT, the deer there, and it was quite amazing when the wolves were reintroduced. You can see that on the web. There's publications to that effect as well.
Interesting debate. I'm just saying I have a few more people who want to ask questions, but the Q&A was planned to be after the next speaker. So I'm just asking, can you wait a little bit for? Yes? Okay, perfect. Because our third speaker of this day is waiting online, Humberto Delgado Rosa, Director for Biodiversity at DG Environment. From the European Commission, and he is joining us to expose the justifications on the recent proposal to change the wolf's protection status under the Bern Convention and its implication. And with this proposal, the European Commission seems to have operated a U-turn after years of supporting coexistence efforts with wolves and rejecting a change of their protection status. So I'm very curious what you have to say. Humberto, the floor is yours for the next 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, also for the invitation and for such interesting information as we have got from the previous speakers. Our first thing I want to say is, well, the return to the wolf into much of European territory is a success story. After being directly persecuted for so long, almost to the brink of extinction, it has recovered through a series of circumstances, social, ecological, policy, legislation, but it is indeed a success story. Now, let me first say that what this proposal means and what it doesn't mean. And one thing it doesn't mean is that we have abandoned the approach to coexistence. Coexistence, as I will say, is the only viable solution to deal with the wolf in Europe. But let me say a bit more about the proposal and its origin. Actually, on 20 December, we have published, the Commission has published, and it was actually as committed to a reply to a resolution of the Parliament of November 2022, we have published then this in-depth analysis on the situation of the wolf in the EU, which includes the most updated data on population and livestock damages. And it's on the basis of that in-depth analysis that the Commission has tabled a proposal for a Council decision for the Union to submit an amendment to the appendices of the Bern Convention, and that would make the wolf becoming protected as opposed to strictly protected. So more precisely, Canis lupus, the wolf, would be moved from Appendix 2, strictly protected fauna, to Appendix 3, protected fauna. So this is not about leaving the wolf unprotected, but of considering a reduction on the level of protection of the wolf. Actually, the wolf has been listed in Appendix 2 since the entry into force of the Bern Convention in 1982, providing with strict protection, given the endangered status of the wolf by that time. And even then, 9 EU member states have opted for a reservation from the listing of the species, 7 member states opting for a full reservation against any protection, and 2 member states opting for appending 3, so just protection. Now, why are we targeting the Bern Convention? Well, it's a precondition for the EU possibly considering changing or adapting the wolves protection status under the Habitats Directive. So it's a prerequisite. We are not changing the Habitats Directive, but proposing that through the Bern Convention that will be considered later. Just also a bit of information on the process of this in-depth analysis. In April 2023, that's when the Commission started collecting relevant information for the analysis of the wolf situation in the EU, notably through the expert group of the nature directives, where the representatives of member states and stakeholders were invited to submit all relevant updated data. And we did receive contributions from several member states. But to broaden the data collection, in last September, we invited interested parties to contribute by providing relevant inputs, further data they could have. And this data collected, which was extracted from many thousands of emails, has complemented this analysis. So we have the final report that does include all the data on the wolf, but also a specific analysis of the results of this targeted consultation. And we have submitted this data for analysis again to the member states, their experts, and finally we have this comprehensive analysis published in 2023. But so let me say a bit more also from this in-depth analysis on what's the wolf conservation status in Europe now. We have all 9 transboundary wolf subpopulations in Europe. They have achieved considerable expansion of their range, and today the species is present in all mainland European countries, some hosting large populations of over 1,000 individuals. With respect to the population of the wolves, the analysis estimates that there are now in the EU in 2023 some 20,300 wolves, which is significantly higher than the latest estimates that were based on reporting by the member states in 2019. So for this period, 2013-2018, the estimation went around 11,000 to 17,000, with the best value around 13,500, while we now know or estimate around 20,300. So the in-depth analysis shows very clearly that wolf populations are increasing in most EU member states. For 10 member states for which we have monitoring results of the last 2 to 3 years, in all but one of these 10 member states, the population has increased. In terms of breeding packs, in 2023, we have detected they were detected in all 24 EU member states with wolf populations, with the exception of Luxembourg. So one thing this shows is the high adaptability and resilience of the wolf. But there's one important distinction to be done. What the Habitats Directive amounts to is aims at favorable conservation status, and having increasing populations of a species increasing in population does not immediately translate into favorable conservation status, because it also depends on other factors, including structure of population, distance to a favorable reference value on range and population, quantity and quality of habitat, and prospects of pressures and threats. So we will in 2025, we will receive information from the member states on the trends of wolf populations, and by 2026 we'll have another reporting on favorable conservation status. The last reporting, for the one from 2013-2018, 21 member states reported for 39 national biogeographical assessments, of which 18 were favorable, 16 unfavorable, inadequate, 3 unfavorable, bad, and 2 unknown. So we'll know more about favorable conservation status as from 2025. Another important point related to this proposal amounts to how to deal with pressures under the 2 protection regimes, protection versus strict protection. First, the main threats to wolves are identified as poaching, alongside the impact of linear infrastructure, while hunting and interactions with agriculture are also frequently reported as pressures. But both regimes, the strict protection regime and the protection regime, they both require that the wolf is protected from extinction or threats. So in both cases, the difference is strict protection leaves less flexibility than protection. But protection still amounts to having to regulate, including for sure enforcement against poaching, but including hunting, keeping it within the context of maintaining the wolf protected and viable. Now, one point that was highlighted in the communications previous to my intervention is about the role of wolves in ecosystems. And indeed, the wolf has a fundamental role to play in ecosystems, provided livestock is protected. So when they don't have the easy meal of livestock, they then go and hunt ungulates, and they do have, as we have seen, they do provide this ecosystem service of controlling diseases, African swine fever, tuberculosis, controlling also the abundance of small and medium-sized carnivores. So indeed, and grazing in the forests. So indeed, there's the aim under strict protection or protection remains to allow wolf populations to fulfill their ecological role. An important aspect, of course, is the socioeconomic impact, and the analysis also discusses damage to livestock. What it says is that around 500 heads of livestock annually in the EU are targeted by wolves. The depredation and damages have increased with the expansion of the wolf, but as we have also seen from the numbers of Poland, normally it's tolerable at country level, while at local level, the concentration at local level can have a considerable impact, and any livestock farmer that is affected feels heavily impacted, of course. So actually, in the resolution of the European Parliament of November 22 that I've referred, it already expressed a view in favor of the mitigation of the protection status of the wolf, also in view of allowing more flexibility to control damages. So in this sense, the Commission proposal corresponds largely to the position that the European Parliament has expressed in its resolution. If I still have 2 minutes, I would say one thing first on the process. Of course, this is now a proposal of the Commission that is in the hands of the Council. It will need a qualified majority of the member states in the Council in order to allow for the amendment proposal to be tabled by the Union in the next meeting of the Standing Committee of the Bern Convention. But now, the final point I want to make is coexistence is the name of the game. Nowhere in Europe are we speaking about eradicating wolves, having wolf-free zones, or getting rid of any problems because there are no wolves again. European society does not want it, and that's not what's in the aim of the proposals. Even one wolf can kill a lot of sheep, for instance, if they are unprotected. So everywhere, the prevention measures, the compensation, the dialogue will be fundamental, because as I heard, il n'y a pas d'autre solution, there is no other solution than coexistence, and coexistence requires the efforts of prevention, compensation, and dialogue, which is something that we also foster by establishing regional platforms for dialogue with EU support in several places in Europe. I would stop here, and we will be pleased to reply to any questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Umberto. And I have to say, I'm really sorry that you have to give us this message, since I know you were, for the last years at least, very passionate about protecting the wolf and fighting for the protection status of this animal. But I will not say anything more about this. Immediately give the floor to the people here in the room, and I have a question from Caroline Roos.
Merci.
Thank you, Anja, and thank you for those presentations. For some time now, we're talking about wolves and talking about wolves as being a threat to humans. I mean, that's totally untrue. Wolf attacks are instrumentalized. Instead of killing wolves, we have to help protect sheep and other farmers. So it's a matter of dialogue. And even at the outset, people realize that there are solutions. As Tilly said, we have to learn to coexist with wolves. We have to take the time to learn to live with wolves rather than changing the protection status of wolves, which I think is really off the wall to reduce the protection of wolves. Wolves do have an impact when it comes to ecosystems. I think that was interesting what you said about the ecosystem services provided by wolves. And there's a powerful hunters lobby in France. I live in southeast France, and there was a study that had been put forward on the possibility of finding solutions with dogs, with fencing, and we saw that it was doable, and that study was presented here in this intergroup. In the Drôme department, the wild boars have been disrupting crops, and despite what the hunters promised, they didn't solve the problem. So there's been packs of wolves now, and the wild boars have been reduced, and farmers were happy. And now hunters are upset because they said there's no wild boar left. They want to kill the wolves. So we really have to get all the parties round the table. And when it comes to farmers, I think they have to be in on the discussion as well and not change, i.e. reduce the status of wolves. I mean, that would be bad for biodiversity, for a number of species. And thank you ever so much for your film, because it goes to show wolves, no, are not a problem. If I might respond, you know, I think we have to be clear what we're talking about. And I mean, it's a bit off the wall because we want to reduce the protection status of wolves. But look at what's happening in France. There's an exemption system that's different from elsewhere in Europe. So you can kill up to 200 wolves a year, 20% of, so there's a lot of hunters and people hunting illegally. So does that affect the attacks by wolves? No impact at all, 0%. So when it comes to ungulates, when it comes to deer, etc., you can regulate what you as much as you want. But this approach, which I think is clientelist and even populist, is a matter of coming up with a simple answer to something that's very complex. And farmers can tell you wolves are there because that's where they can get their food. And as said, they regulate themselves so that there's not going to be too many of them. But when you start affecting their numbers, then you have a counter effect. There is a pull effect, and then you'll quickly see wolves coming back. And we see that everywhere where there are wolves. And I'd like to say one thing, and what I tell people when it comes to shooting wolves will solve the problem. If you just have 1 or 2 wolves left, then you'll still have attacks. So that solution, rather, isn't there. I mean, one can almost poke fun at breeders and farmers because there's a solution on the table, which isn't a solution at all. And I'm not the type of guy who says, oh, wolves are wonderful, they're lovely. No, you have to, I mean, when it comes to sharing territories, packs of wolves, they can be cruel amongst themselves with a view to keeping the system in balance. So to see somebody kill a wolf, somebody who's just as angry as can be, I mean, that doesn't worry me. But when it comes to quotas, when it's a matter of regulation, that's something quite different. So I really, and I think you have to be very clear about this. I mean, okay, you can kill wolves. I mean, that's not a problem in itself. It can happen. But the idea of having quotas and wanting to regulate this animal, I mean, that's the Sorcerer's Apprentice. Look at, if that's what's happened with the foxes. So 600,000 according to the Greens. So that's how many foxes have been killed. In fact, are those animals under threat? But there was major takeovers, shifting in terms of where the animals, where the foxes go. And sometimes when you have pests as a result of foxholes, and if you try the same thing with wolves, you're going to see that they're going to young animals, young wolves that haven't been educated, as it were, and if they change their areas, they're very opportunist insofar as they find whatever they can. And of course, that opens the door to attacks. And the packs, they have a culture. Wolves, I mean, dogs, which is, we think of it as intelligent, wolves are intelligent as well, and it's an animal with a culture. It adapts to its environment and it educates its offspring on the basis of the environment. So you, in the British Isles, you have wolves that fish. They get their food from the sea because that's better than hunting on land. And if they know that there's people, that there's, in Italy, there's a new study underway which is about using non-metal bullets. You have that as a possibility that hurts the wolves, but it doesn't kill them. Rubber bullets. And there's a lot of discussion, and you have farmers and sheep farmers who are shocked by attacks, and they have their animals that are suffering, and they think that shooting animals is the solution. And I have met plenty of farmers who just stick to that old world view. That's why we need this dialogue. It's very important to show respect and open the door to these people as well. So this response on the part of the European Commission is opening the door. It's a foot in the door. I mean, this could end up with opening of Pandora's box, and we can see that giving the populism spreading everywhere, protecting the environment is going to take a blow. And as I say, that's not a solution. If it were a solution, well, okay, we could argue a little bit and say so many rather than that many, but it's just demagogy and populism. Thank you very much.
But we are running out of time, as always, and there are more people who want to ask questions. Michael, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and with respect to the time, I will be speaking quite shortly, despite I had prepared a lot of questions. To me, really, the issue with wolf is a matter of contrasts. You know, there are these opinions on both sides of the spectra. What I am worried about is that we hear more of those negative aspects. You know, we are always talking about the damage, about the spreading of wolf, about the risk of farmers. That's why I really appreciate the intervention of our Polish colleagues who really took it from the complex from complex point of view and showed us what really the value and the role of the wolf is there to be played. And I can, well, frankly say that without wolf, we would have more problems than we have with wolf. It's very obvious from the perspective of diseases, from the perspective of ungulates and the damage they cause on the agriculture, and also from the perspective of actually living in the Europe where there's no wolf. Like, what kind of Europe is that? So in this respect, I really think that majority of the public, of the Europeans, actually welcome the situation that the wolf is coming back, because the European nature is coming back, the spirit of our forest is coming back, and this is a positive matter of fact. But of course, there are those people who are being affected by this development, but they are not like kept only like that. Like, the prevention tools are pretty massive. The substitutions are, or the subsidies are pretty massive. You know, the compensations are pretty massive. The knowledge is there. What I am very worried about is the unwillingness to actually apply and exploit them. That's the biggest part of the problem with the wolves. We don't have effective prevention, despite that the tools are there. They only need to be implemented in the field, and in many cases it's not happening. So then the problems are, of course, on the rise. What I evaluated very much from the movie that we have seen is actually the farmers themselves are not telling that the wolf is their only problem. They see it in a complex way. They say that the society is detached from the farming style of life. They don't understand how the food is actually made, how the animals are bred, that you need to kill an animal. You know, this is really the aspect. I would say that they would probably also agree that the common agriculture policy is not doing the best for them also, and the industrialization of farming, you know, that's all the problem. So the wolf is only the peak of the iceberg of the problems they face. And I really evaluated that and appreciate that, because this is really the essence of the current problem. Even if we shoot all the wolves, the problems for the farmers would not stop, and they will probably perish from the valleys they now are trying to stay on. So we really don't need the wolf as a sort of an offset of our problems. This is not the way it should work. We desperately need to seek for the coexistence. And in that regard, I would really be really asking the Commission also not to forget about their own principles. They were always asking us, you know, that we need to do a lot about the prevention. We need to seek the ways how to coexist with wolf. This is exactly the way that the Commission should go on. So only to make another step back because of the strong populist, well, pressure they now experience because of the election, because of the farmer riots, because all of that, it's not a wise decision. So let's be cool. Let's wait a little bit, and let's always stick to the facts. That's the only way that we can proceed. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Michel. I totally agree with you, and I would like to give Umberto the floor to comment on your story. But I also have a question for the European Commission myself, because I hear farmers and also the European Commission when they talk about prevention a lot about talk about fences and guard dogs. And we heard also from Jean-Michel that there are other techniques that teach the parents and resulting in the transmission of experiences about prey and habitats to their pups. And I'm wondering if the Commission is also investing in those alternatives and prevention matters. For instance, the electric sheep collar that prevents wolf predation. So, Umberto, please can you comment on the comments of Michel in this question?
I would like to comment even a bit more, if I may, and first to thank you, Mr. Chair, on your words of sympathy, but also to ensure you that I personally and all my colleagues remain as committed as ever for the protection of nature, wolves included. So some quick reactions to some issues that were mentioned, not necessarily questions. On the risk for people, you'll also find that in the in-depth analysis, and you'll find it is extremely low, so not non-existent, but extremely low, although the perception of fear does exist in some communities. A fundamental point that some of you said, first, one thing I want to signal is nowadays in the EU, we already have a differentiated situation of strict protection in some member states and some regions and only protection in others. We actually have several member states where in the whole or part of the country the wolf is simply protected. We're all under the Habitats Directive. And we also have cases where the member state has decided to expand strict protection to everywhere, even when only part of the population was protected. So this is just to highlight that the status protected only or strictly protected does not amount to less wolves, all the wolves being in danger by any means. A second point that was also highlighted, and I fully share, we should not show this issue of changing annexes as the solution for predation. It's not the solution for predation. It does allow more flexibility in some cases to deal with problematic cases of wolves. But sometimes, that was also said by one of you in the table, sometimes killing a wolf makes things worse. For instance, if the pack gets disrupted and the wolves go rogue and losing that learning of how to deal with risk for themselves. Another issue is, well, I think on this issue of the ecological role of the wolf, we can go further than that to say that everywhere in Europe we need to rebuild more complete ecosystems, because many problems we have, from forest fires to erosion and others, or to the spread of species like wild boar, the excessive spread, it comes because the ecosystems are incomplete. And indeed, most Europeans cherish having large carnivores, including in rural areas. There's a majority that are in favor of coexistence, provided their livelihoods can be supported. So I think we should keep in mind it's all an issue of transition towards coexistence, which requires support. It's hard, it requires work, and requires the willingness. Now, the willingness exists, at least in some member states. If you see how many of them, some 15, have put money from the rural development available for coexistence. But we should not forget that even with this compensation, prevention, and even if it's a fact that the wolf is not the cause of any decline in rural areas, it is an added pressure to a situation for some livestock farmers which is already dire from market conditions, competition, and so forth. So these strong emotions the wolf takes into account, the cost of coexistence, require understanding and dialogue. And I cherish very much the structural dialogue that the Commission has launched with the farming community. Finally, on the specific question, Mrs. Chair, of preventive measures, we do support study and analysis and application in practice of coexistence measures through the LIFE program. And they do cover a wealth, I cannot tell all kinds, but certainly electric fences, dogs, awareness raising, and so forth. And some of the LIFE projects, there are several that have targeted wolves. Some have shown that prevention, properly tuned to local conditions, can reduce predation above 90%, in some cases 96, 98, 100% of success. So they do work. There's a wealth of solutions, and coexistence is and will remain the name of the game in what amounts to large carnivores in Europe. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for your answer. I just want to check if our first speaker, Sabrina Novak, has something to add before I close this meeting.
Thank you. May I join? Yes, thank you. I want to mention that there were conducted some studies analyzing the impact of regular hunting on damage in livestock caused by wolves. They were done in Slovakia and Czech Republic, so scientists from Czech Republic and Slovakia analyzed data from Slovakia for many, many years of hunting on wolves. There were regular hunting done there, and it stopped last 2 years. However, the data showed that there were no an impact on the level of depredation by wolves, important impact with hunting. So the hunting of wolves did not decrease the level of damage. In provinces where the hunting was higher, the damage were also very important cause of losing livestock by farmers. So there was no direct connection between hunting and decreasing the depredation. Maybe this is also a very important message which we can gain from this meeting.
Thank you so much for your comments. And I think many of us agree with what you have said. Before I close the meeting, I want to thank all our speakers for giving us the opportunity to understand more about this difficult and nuanced issue. I believe that the main outcome of this debate today is that coexistence with wolves is not only necessary but also possible, and it is a viable solution for farmers and other stakeholders in the rural area. I have a lot of other things to say, but let me finish here. I have a sad announcement as well today. We just heard the news that Peter von Kool, a Danish reporter, has died at the age of 80 yesterday. He had cancer, and for those of you who don't know him, he was a warm supporter of animal rights, and he attended almost all intergroup meetings for decades. So I'm quite speechless about this. I want to wish everyone who knew him and his family and friends all the strength to deal with this loss. I want to stop here. I thank the interpreters for their work today, and just let me say that the next session of the Animal Welfare Intergroup will take place on the 29th of February from 10 to 11:30, and we will discuss the Commission proposal on the welfare of dogs and cats and their traceability. Thank you.